we seem to need to be able to identify. That's why I called it that identification trap, which leads to addiction. And we have these sayings like, well, I am a. And the moment you hear I am a, it's like, oh, caution, I am a doctor, I am a biochemist, I am a waiter, I am a carpenter. And that's really a skill. It's something that we do. It's not something that we are. So when we look at the rest of organic life, what we see is nothing else on the planet needs to identify with being anything apart from itself. And I think there's a big clue in that. Like we look at a cat, we look at a tree, we look at a bird. It doesn't claim to be anything other than what it is. And they're all in what I think of now as a first step system. And then when we get to the human, we have two parts, like you said. If we were only living in our body and we had instinct, like the instinct of a squirrel or the instinct of a bird, we would know exactly what to do. We'd be living unconsciously within the rhythm of the planet. But that's not us. We have this second system, our brain system, which is then always looking, as you say, it's not fully evolved, and it's looking for what to identify with and how can it fulfill itself. And so we get this brain-body conundrum. We get this, instead of integration, we can find ourselves in disintegration. And the addictions, in my experience, dealing quite a bit with addictions in counseling, the addiction is primarily the brain, or particularly that frontal part of the brain, but let's take the brain as a whole for now, is the brain looking for increased stimulation. And I think of the brain as an electrical organ. That is, our mind is energetic and our brain is physical and energetic together. I look at sayings in the language and we say things like mind out. Well, that means it can step out. Absent-minded, my mind's gone missing. Presence of mind, oh, it's come back. So we have this dynamic of the mind, which is more energetic. We don't say to someone, I'll give you a piece of my brain. We say, I'll give you such a piece of my mind. Remember my mother, give you a piece of my mind. Well, you can give a piece of your mind because it's more the energetics that are formed within the brain. So there's increasing study in this, of course, in the whole area of neuropathy, and the idea that as our thoughts change, we actually make new pathways in our brain. But the pathways in the brain are second. They're not first. We change our mind and we change our brain. So we change the energetics of what's going up here, and that can change the pathways. So how does someone become addicted? At some point, they had to get introduced to something which gave them a stimulant that then the brain mind system is like, oh, we feel high. Interesting expression. People say we get high. And then they get high, we get high on something, which is a brain state, but then we tend to crash because it's an artificial stimulant. It's not a natural development state. So we then look for means. That's not right. It's not we look for. I think of our brain as like almost like a separate, imagine your brain as a separate organism. And I know we've spoken about this, previously in working together, but the brain is looking for where can it get stimulation? How can I get so-called high? How can I reach a higher state? Because it's an energy-based organ and it wants to get the highest level of energy, the most potent energies running through it that it can. So it's not only a matter of mental exercise or going to the brain gym that determines the condition of our brain, it's the magnitude and the level of the current, like the current opening. It's the level of current that's coming through the pathways that's so very determining. That's why if someone experiences a moment of shock, it can print their brain pathways in seconds. I'll tell a short story, which has happened when I was about 17. I was hitchhiking in Scotland and I was given a lift by a chap in a little car, picked me up. So I got in the car, and I smoked at the time. So part of my making bridges was to say, "Would you like a cigarette?" And he said, "No, no, no. I gave up smoking in 3 seconds." So I'm like, "What?" I said, "How did you?" Because I was giving up smoking or thinking of. So how did you do that? He said, "Oh," I said, "It's a story." He said, I was working in a quarry, and I worked with dynamite. So we bore a hole, and we'd put the dynamite in the hole, and then I would wire it up and go long distance, and then we'd press the depressor, and it would cause the explosion. And he said, one day, there I am with the dynamite, doing my thing, and I realized I had a cigarette lit in my right hand. And he said, that sent such a shock through my system, I gave up on the spot, and I've never smoked since. So that to me was a very powerful story of how when there's enough energetic intensity comes through, it can change the pathways rapidly.
Along with our website at portalsofperception.org, Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.